Welcome back. You're watching Daybreak on Citizen Television, and thank you for staying with us here on the broadcast. We thank you for your company and choosing to wake up with us here on the broadcast. John Kagusha is the Mukurweini Member of Parliament. The Homa Bay County Senator Moses Kajwang is here with us also, and the Githunguri Member of Parliament Gathoni Mushomba is also with us here. Thank you for your time and company, ladies and gentlemen. You had a point, Honorable Kagusha.
Yeah, I want to make two very quick observations. Number one, on the issue of Rigathi Gachagua's 200 million Kenya shillings, in law, whoever alleges carries the burden of proof. So if you take Gachagua to court that he has 200 million in his account, then you must also prove that he illegally acquired that money. You can't wait until the end and say, since we are unable to prove that this money was acquired illegally, then we want to hold the money until or unless you come and prove to us. And yet you are the ones alleging. It's a principle of law. Whoever alleges carries the burden of proof. In this case, the person who had the allegations was not able to prove his allegations. And so that is why they now wanted to turn it the other way around. Tell him, bring us the receipts, bring us the invoices, bring us documents. I mean, really? 2007? Until today, that's a big problem. Now, the second very quick point is that the accusations or the threats, alleged threats that may have been made on rooftops of the cars during the campaign period was not necessarily on any individual personally. It was sweeping statements on abuse of office. If you can remember...
But names were made, Honorable Kagusha. Yeah. Names were made.
The names were mentioned to the extent to which they related to abuse of office. For example, the politicians would clearly ask Matiang'i to desist. And even Musheru, if you can remember, they clearly asked them to desist from using their offices to try and sway how the electoral process was being taken. For example, when Musheru said that he was working silently on fixing the electoral process to ensure that the outcome favors Baba. You know, at that time, he was asked to stop that kind of statements. And the same thing also on DCI. He was not being accused or he was not being threatened as DCI as a person. He was actually asked to desist from using the Kamata Friday, from selective persecutions on politicians who are related, associated, and working together with William Ruto. I mean, that is what was done. That is what was said. There was no specific threat on Kinoti as a person that would have made him resign, which did not relate to abuse of office.
The point is then that when you talk about the DCI, that is an entire institution.
That is it.
But it's the then Deputy President now who said we have the most incompetent police IG, Hilary Mutyambai, who named names of security officials in the Rift Valley over accusations of distributing leaflets in the Rift Valley region, subject, of course, to be proven. Because you talk about the burden of proof, which is very important in the criminal justice system. Yeah. I mean, it seems then on both ends of the political divide, you look at one flip and then the other, they seem to be corroborating each other. We have a problem with the political establishment in the country. Then how can that be best addressed from the perspective of now emboldening these institutions and the holders of these institutions to see prosperity and not the individuals?
Yeah, that is important. We must ensure that we desist from using institutions of government to propagate political agenda. And we must ensure that these institutions of government are serving the whole population in this country, regardless of their political leaning. And that is what this government has proved. And I really want to say that we have had officers who have clearly stood out. Even though there was persecution and all the challenges of intimidation and all that, they have stood out. Look at Chebukat, for example. He stood out as a person who stood for the truth. Look at even the DPP himself at some point. And that's why he's believable today, because at some point he desisted from going that direction. At some point, you remember, he actually said that there's no senior political officer who is going to be arrested anymore without his approval. And why was he saying this? Because he saw the process was being abused. And at some point, point, he had 18 cases against him on removal from office. At some point, he had been, his house had actually been broken into. And all this was for the purposes of persecution and intimidation to move out or to be pushed out of office because he was not serving parochial political interest. And by the way, he is also now the second senior officer of the previous government to actually indict the processes that were in the previous government. Remember, the central bank governor the other day said that we were now headed to the Goldenberg issue when it came to the subsidies, whereby people would go and claim what they had actually not sold. They would claim what you had not delivered. That shows what was happening in the previous government.
That's taken. Honorable, can I give you 1 minute before we proceed to the next topic? Yes,
please, I want to use your words.
Okay.
You said that whether this is the right time for us politicians to allow institutions of government to operate without us calling them out on rooftops of the vehicles. Please remember our role. We are representative of the people. And we use any available platform to call out when things are not working. Who was supposed to speak about the ills that were going around IG if the then deputy president could not do so? He had to call out the IG when one person was killed at Keno in a political forum. You remember the church incident? Even to date, the IG, the DCI, and so on have never told us who killed that young man who died. Even today. It is our duty to call out, irrespective of what government institution we are talking about. We are trusted by the people to represent the people. As we speak right now, a young man has died in my constituency. He died last night in the arms of the DCI. If I do not use this platform, Citizen TV, to call out those institutions on behalf of the people who trust me and believe in me and voted for me, then I'm useless. So we must also be careful not to to disarm one arm of government in the name of protecting some government institutions. But we must strike a balance.
The balance has to exist.
Yes, we must strike a balance.
No, I find this an unfortunate conversation. We have institutions in the Constitution that are meant to deal with such things. The president met IPOA. The question is, where was IPOA all this while? When extrajudicial killings were being done, bodies were being dumped in rivers, and the fact that the bodies were dumped in River Yala, some people think that it is the people of Yala who killed them. Those bodies perhaps were killed elsewhere and dumped there. We've got the ombudsman, who is a commission on administrative justice, who is supposed to look at such issues, maladministration and misapplication of the law. What space are we giving them? Why is it that now politicians have taken a partisan approach to this, and they're the ones who are crying loudest and not allowing and empowering these constitutional bodies, these institutions, to do their job? It becomes extremely dangerous when the political class wants to use the criminal justice system to settle scores. And the question would be, this morning since 7 a.m. that we've been talking about the criminal justice system, the DCI and the DPP, what does it mean to the ordinary Kenyan? That ordinary Kenyan has woken up not knowing where he's going to get their breakfast from. They've woken up not knowing where their child who's doing class 6 exams and class 8 exams is going to go to, because we've got a government that is completely clueless. And it is because they have no ideas. What they want to do is to act like the wife of Lot, who, instead of moving forward, kept looking back. And I can tell this government that they shall be turned into a pillar of salt, like it happened in the Bible. We have had enough of Uhuru did this. We have had enough of the other government did this. We have had enough of Kinoti did this. Let's cast our eyes forward. Let's deal with these injustices, because we've got institutions that are mandated to do that. IPOA, the Ombudsman, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, and the courts of law are still available to provide a recourse. Let this government tell us how they're going to fix the problem that is facing the Kenyan watching me right now. How he's going to pay his transport, how he's going to get his breakfast, how he's going to make ends meet in this difficult economy.
Thank you.
That's why we elected him to office.
Well noted.